Continuing, I'm not sure how many of you were able to follow the first talk, and I gave it this title, Birth to Know Birth, Death to Know Death. And that is, in a way, essentially, it describes the teachings of the Buddha from coming to take birth. How do we progress, develop ourselves to a status where we don't have to be born? And how do we, upon the death that we encounter in one life, how not to have follow-up deaths? Because we are beings that use our energy to always follow up. We are follow-up creatures. That means one after the other, we keep doing what we have been doing. The challenge for the Buddha and many of the enlightened teachers is how to guide beings, some of which have a lot of dust in their eyes, and some of whom have very little dust in their eyes. How to guide these beings, meaning us, who have different levels of understanding. How do we guide them? Or how does the Buddha was thinking, how do I guide them, to the place that they can see what is this life and what is this death, and what comes after it. The challenge to this is that we only see ourselves. That means we are here, we only see ourselves as being connected to one life. That means we attach ourselves, we root ourselves to the life that we have come into, and we think this life is our life, and it is a life that is very unique. But when we follow the Buddha's path, we begin to see that this is not the first life, neither would it be the last life. We are, in fact, doomed to go on life after life after life after life, and always meeting the same difficulties, the same challenges, and also the same happiness, the same joy. We enjoy the same thing, but when that comes into being, we also meet with other challenges of life. And so those of us who have lived quite a bit, if you are at least into your 60s or 70s or even more, you would know that to go through life is quite a challenge. We have so many things to look after. We have so many things to attend to. So those who have a little bit of wisdom will start to think, is there anything other than this? Are we always going to go forward, life after life, meeting the same kind of, ups and downs, that we have for uncountable times? This is the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha who is able to see the lifetimes past of human beings. This is what the Buddha offered to us. And when he offers it to us, when we come across it, we sometimes see that there is some truth in this. And when we find that it makes sense to us, what we do is we try our best, to follow up, to develop our understanding to a higher level, the wisdom to a higher level, so that in the future, we can get away from this. we can cut, the continuous re-becoming, as the Buddha said. We re-become, we become again. And when that happens, it would, those who have achieved it say, it is a very liberating experience. Meaning to say, when we can actually get a glimpse of what the Buddha promised to us, we feel very light. In that we don't have to carry the burden of repeated lives. In Greek mythology, there was a king called Sisyphus. Have you heard of this king? Some of you might have. It's a very interesting story that he was a very proud man. And he made because of his pride, he defied the ancient Greek gods. So in order to punish him, the gods made him push a huge rock up the hill. And then as he pushed it up the hill, he will reach the top of the hill, and then the rock would roll down. And then he would go down the other side and push it back up the hill. And so it was a tremendous effort for him. It was very difficult to push. And then as he got to the top, the thing tipped and then went down. So his idea was to try somehow, to balance this rock at the tip of the hill. But he never, ever succeeded. So philosophers, teachers, wise men analyzed this situation. And they began to understand that after many times of pushing this rock, Sisyphus, this king, grew attached to the rock. I know it's hard to imagine, but as he pushed it, he began to like the rock. And so, they began to understand that at any one time, when he wanted to, he could have. Because the gods only told him that he would be punished for maybe 50 years or 100 years. But after that 100 years, he kept on going. And he kept on going because he liked this rock very, very much. So, it never occurred to him. In fact, he was very afraid to think that if he let go of the rock would roll down and he would be free. Because the gods didn't want to punish him for a long time, only for about 100 years. But after that 100 years, because he was so attached, he kept on pushing this rock again and again and again and again. So the philosophers, the teachers, the wise men began to connect the story of this Greek king with our situation. Our situation is we meet a lot of challenges in our life. Yes, of course, there is some enjoyment in it. But after a while, we enjoy pushing the rock. And when somebody tells us, hey, you can step aside and let the rock roll down, we become very, very unhappy. Due to that suggestion. It makes us feel fulfilled, feel happy, feel satisfied to keep pushing this rock up the hill. And then after that, when he rolls down, up the hill again. And then when he rolls down, up the hill again. So, the purpose of the Buddha's enlightenment was to reveal that we can, if we want to, step aside and be free of the rock. In fact, this is the purpose of Buddhas becoming enlightened. Because there are suffering beings, the Buddha strives for enlightenment. If we didn't suffer, we wouldn't need the Buddha's enlightenment. So this is the premise of what I have been reflecting on. Whenever I have to give a talk, I reflect quite a bit on it. And today, although we will keep to, the statement in red here, Treasures of the Noble Path, part 2, I will be referring to the Noble Eightfold Path. I would like to offer to Dhamma brothers and sisters a teaching that accompanies it. And when we take a look at this teaching, when we have some idea of how we look at this state of suffering from another point of view, it might be easier for us to break through and have a better understanding of the nature of our life. So, as I mentioned, we are searching for freedom from birth and death. And how do we achieve this state of no birth and no death? So that we are not subject to the continuing, the repetitious rounds of existence again and again. When I consider that when we talk about having many, many lives, to us it is very difficult to grasp that. There was a time when I was, some months back, I was conducting a course for a class of students. And there was this European man. And when we started to talk about, I introduced Noble Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, things that seemed very logical and rational. And then when we started to talk about rebirth, he made a request. He said, excuse me, teacher, can we stay with the topics that we can see? Meaning, if you talk about suffering, I can see suffering. If you talk about old age, I can see old age. But when you talk about rebirth, it gets abstract for me. This man said. So we did our best to explain to him that it is very difficult, to teach the Buddhist Dhamma without referring to rebirth, because of the opportunities that is given, the opportunities that we receive because of rebirth, because of these rounds, of coming again and again, we have great opportunities. But he did not quite agree, because he said, then you are taking Buddhism to superstitious level. Buddhism becomes superstitious after that, because it's abstract. It cannot be seen. So I had to explain to him that it is abstract because we do not have the instrument. We use all kinds of instruments to see things. For example, if we want to see the color, then we use the instrument of eyes. If we want to see little germs, like COVID virus, we need the instrument of microscope, etc., etc. So there must be instruments. So I said to him, the trouble with what we are doing is we cannot provide the instrument for you to see rebirth. So he accepted it for a short while, the way that I explained it. And I said to him, in fact, if we want to develop the instrument, we can. We can develop this ability to see into past lives, but it takes a long time. Because these past lives that we have is embedded in our consciousness somewhere. But we don't know how to access it. But there are certain practitioners, there are certain people who practice in order to access those past lives. And then, to them, rebirth is not abstract anymore. It is a reality because they can remember, where they have come from. And of course, we always hear the stories. There are so many stories of people remembering their past births. And so, what I'm getting at is, if we cannot see certain things that the Buddha taught, it would be good for us to keep it in view for a while. You know, when I was young, I was taken to the Sunday Dhamma school, and many of the things that my teachers taught me, I really couldn't understand. You know, but I just committed it to memory, and then when they said go for the exam, I went for the exam. Yeah, but after many, many years of looking, of learning, of studying, and reflecting, reflecting is also very important, things started to make a lot of sense. And of course, when you start the practice of meditation, somehow the mind begins to connect the dots. You know, connecting the dots is quite an interesting process. You know, when we buy books for our children, there are these books where the pages, they are dot, 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 dot. And then you teach the kid, you join, and after you've joined all the dots, it looks like an elephant. Yeah, and then the child becomes very excited. Oh, I've drawn an elephant, just because I've connected the dots. So, understanding the Dhamma is like this. You have a dot, then you start connecting it as systematically as possible, and then after that, it starts to form a picture in your mind. It forms a picture of understanding, in our mind. So effort is needed. It doesn't come easily. So the more we apply effort into developing wisdom, the better we can see what the Buddha has taught actually is true. It holds water. So no birth to no death. How do we achieve it? And when we look, and this is what I have been trying to introduce, that in samsara, these rounds of birth and death that we always hear about, many teachers, many monks, many lay Dhamma speakers always talk about this samsara. And so we are in this samsara. In Malay language, they have taken this word and they changed it slightly, the pronunciation to sangsara. Have you heard this word, sangsara? What does it mean? Suffering. They are actually quite right. From the rounds of birth and death, they have taken this word to give the meaning of suffering. And when we see it, actually, it brings about a lot of difficulty and suffering. So which is why, we are trying our best to see it from the point of view of the Buddha's teachings. So how did the Buddha introduce this? I hope you will stay with me. I'm trying to create a case. I'm trying to create a picture from here eventually to the Noble Eightfold Path. But when we go through this patch, I hope the Noble Eightfold Path becomes clearer in the way that we understand it. So the Buddha said, what do you think, monks? Which is greater, the tears you have shed while transmigrating, that means born again and again and again, and wandering this long time, crying and weeping from being joined with what is displeasing, being separated from what is pleasing, or the water in the four great oceans. So the Buddha tries to paint a picture. And painting pictures is very good, because in those days they didn't have, digital technology. They didn't have Google. You just type out pictures and then show it to your audience. The Buddha tried to paint this picture in the mind of the audience. So he said, think carefully. The tears that we have shed, being sad, being depressed, being unhappy, have we shed as much tears in our lives, going through samsara, or is there more water in the four great oceans? The Indian people at that time definitely knew about the ocean. You know, they had the ocean on the east and in the west, so they knew how vast the oceans were. So the Buddha wanted to stimulate this kind of thinking, awareness, in the monks. So he asked this question, which is more, your tears, the tears you have shed as you go round, samsara, or the water in the four great oceans? And the monks replied, Lord, as you have taught us, as you have made us understand, and in some of them, they have seen for themselves their past births where they have cried and they have been unhappy and sad, all these tears that they have shed. They explained it, they answered in this way. As we understand the Dhamma taught to us by the Blessed One, this is the greater. The tears we have shed, how much we have cried while transmigrating and wandering this long time, crying and weeping from being joined with what is displeasing. That means we get what we don't want, and what we want we cannot get. We have cried over it. That volume of tears is more than the water in the four great oceans. And as we know, we learn in school, I think our earth is about 70 to 80% covered in water by the seas. So if we are to take the Buddha's explanation for its true value, that means there's so many tears that we have shed. As we go round and round, we have lost people, we have gotten things that we don't want. In life, we can, get COVID and feel very unhappy about it, which I contracted last December. I don't know which strain it was, but for 5 days, I really felt horrible. And then I saw my friends now recently getting it. After 3 days, they are up and about. So I think it was a different strain. But anyway, it was like this. It did make me worry quite a lot, because there were 1 or 2 days I felt that my breathing was very, very shallow. So I kept monitoring it with the little machine. It made me worried. And for some people, they might have cried. And while crying, they would have contributed to this great volume of water that have contained due to our suffering. So this is the common idea of samsara put up there. We go round and round, birth after birth after birth. And we are sometimes here on the earth, and sometimes we are on other planets. So it seems. I've done a lot of reading and also consulting with people who have some kind of supernormal abilities. To them, this Earth is only one planet. There are other planets, which today scientists also agree. So all these places that we can be born in the whole of the universe, and as you know, the universe comes into being and is destroyed, and new universe will come into being. This is also our samsara. We can be born in those places. Not just here, we can be born in another solar system, another galaxy, etc., etc. And we call that samsara. But is there another way to look at it? Is there another way that we can understand this samsara in a view, in a perspective that we can actually grasp? We can understand it. Because when we start talking about universes and galaxies, it's not easy for us to grasp this idea of samsara. It's abstract. It becomes abstract. Yeah, just as I told you, this European man said, rebirth is so abstract. When we start to think about all these galaxies out there where we can be born, we can't really understand it. So as I reflected on this, there is another way to understand samsara. And this other way will also make it very urgent for us to start studying deeper and practicing more what the Buddha taught to us. So the samsara has been called an ocean, which is created by our own minds. We are taught that we are in samsara due to our karma. If you have karma, you are born again in samsara. Yeah, when people explain the rebirth process, they say when we finish this birth, our consciousness will finish at one point, but if we have craving, we still have craving, attachment, etc., etc., it will pull us to another birth. So those people who have gotten rid of craving, when they finish this life, that's it. No another continuing life. But we, because of our craving, we are pulled actually to another life. So these things, these processes, all these things that are happening, happen in our mind. Now, it's not happening in our body. We know it's happening in our mind. All this sadness and depression and longing and craving, it's in our minds. So when I tell you, when I suggest to you, I propose to you, the ocean in samsara is created by our own minds, would you agree? It's our minds, you know, when we want something, when we don't want something, when we want to grasp things as our own. I want to own this, I like it very much. We are creating the samsara in our own minds through the activities of our minds. So samsara, actually, we experience it through our mind. So, I'm sure you know this very wise monk. He writes a lot. Yeah, he has written many books, and you can also get access to his teachings online. You know, you go to YouTube, you just type Thandisaro, and you will get volumes of Dhamma teachings. So when I came across what Venerable had to say, I began to view it and fit it into what I was looking for. And here, Venerable, in one of his books, he said about samsara, instead of a place, let's call it a process. Samsara. Yeah, because we tend to think of samsara as, I mentioned, the universe, the planets where we are born, the country, that's our samsara. But Venerable says, let's look at it as a process. The tendency to keep creating worlds and then moving into them. We create the worlds. And then after that, we go and exist there. That, Venerable says, is samsara. So when I came across this, I said, wow, this really is very interesting. Why don't I share it, you know, with my brothers and sisters, yeah, at BUBS? Yeah, because that's the way I have been reflecting and thinking on it. And note, oh, the spacing is a bit funny. And note that this creating and moving in doesn't just happen once at birth. We are doing it all the time. So what Venerable is trying to suggest is this birth is not the birth, it's not just, it is, but it's not just one thing. It is not just we becoming who we are during our birth, 20 years, you know, 30 years, 40, to some people, yeah, 60 over years ago. That's birth. But Venerable says this birth is happening all the time. As long as we are conscious, as long as the consciousness flows in our mind, we are creating samsara in our minds. And then we exist in the samsara we have created through our minds. I hope it's not getting too abstract. Yeah, it is so interesting. Yeah, and it gives us the freedom to see it in this way and practice accordingly. So, these are the components I would like to tell you about. You've seen it innumerable times. This is the process or the components of dependent origination. There are 12 links. Yeah, some of you might have studied it in detail. But here, I immediately thought, here is a way to explain the samsara and the samsara of the mind. And how it happens is that if we divide it into 4 sections, and the yellow, the bright yellow section, we call it present effects. Present effects means we can experience these components, these qualities, these happenings right here, right now. As you sit in this hall on your cushion, your mat, you are experiencing these things. No need to go and imagine it. These are the instruments that I've been talking about, that we have consciousness. Do you know where you are? If you know where you are conscious. Do you know who you are? If you know who you are also conscious. If somebody hits us on the head and we pass out, we don't know where we are, we don't know who we are, because the consciousness is not working well. But because we are awake, we have consciousness. Yeah. So in our minds, the consciousness is constantly working, always working. And because of that consciousness, we develop the body and mind existence. Consciousness gives rise to the knowing that we have body and mind. Yeah? Due to this consciousness, we look in, this is my body. This is my mind. So it's the next thing forward. It propels itself. It links and then it goes there. Yeah? So consciousness links to the body and mind. And the body and mind produces the 6 sense bases. So what are these 6 sense bases? We've all got it. Our eye is a sense base, our ear, our nose, our tongue, our body, and our mind make up the 6 sense bases, which is produced by nama and rupa. Not hard to understand. Because there is consciousness, there is body and mind. Because of body and mind, we have the 6 sense bases. Unless there is something wrong, some people are born blind, some people are born deaf, then they have less senses. But normal people have 6 sense bases, which gives rise to contact. As I am speaking, sound is coming in, the sight is coming in, there is contact between the outer world and the senses. So once that meets, it's called contact. Right? If you close your ears, if you don't want to see me, you can break the contact. Just close your eyes. If you don't want to hear me, just plug your ears. The contact doesn't exist. But because you allow it, there is contact. Right? So when we eat something nice, salty or spicy, there's a contact with the tongue. So this contact is happening every time the senses come into play, do their job. And because of contact, there is a feeling. There are 3 types of feeling. There is pleasant feeling, there is unpleasant feeling, and there is a neutral feeling. So hopefully, as you listen to me, you are experiencing it usually around here. Some kind of sensation that is pleasant. If you go and eat lunch afterwards, you take a look at the feelings that you get. Is it pleasant? And usually we eat things that we like, that gives us pleasant feelings. We don't go and eat something that really is horrible and gives us unpleasant feelings. Maybe we do that accidentally, so we get unpleasant feelings. But mostly we are looking for pleasant feelings. So even the people that we mix with, we want the people around us to give us pleasant feelings. So we tell them, please say nice things to me. Don't say bad, hurting things to me. Because when you say things I don't like, I will get what type of feelings? Unpleasant feelings. So talk to me nicely. Yeah. This is the expectation of everybody in the world. Everybody in the world expects that everyone should treat them nicely, or else they will get angry. I have that expectation. I expect that everybody will treat me nicely so that I can be happy and have pleasant feelings. So this is the nature of everyone in the world. Yeah, they grow up thinking, please, everybody in the world should treat me nicely. That is the unwritten and unspoken expectation of human beings. So because of this feeling, if it is nice and not nice or whatever it is, we get the craving. Oh, this prawn mee tastes very good. Then we crave it. Yeah. Or if we eat something like char kway teow, it doesn't taste good, we don't want it anymore. But still, there is a pushing away. So from that craving comes clinging. Ah, this is so nice. I want to come again. So we cling on to it. I like it so much. Maybe I tapao home. Then dinner also I eat it again. It's so nice. So there is a clinging. We don't want to let go. It's so good. Why should I let go? That thought, that quality of the mind is called clinging. And from this clinging comes becoming. So becoming means we have a sense of who we are. What does that mean? So if you eat something good, we always think, I like it. We don't say, my mother likes it. When we eat it, hey, I like it. Oh, this is so nice to me. Oh, I must remember to come back. So this is the process of becoming. We give rise to who we are through this process. And because there is becoming, here is the important part. We take birth. This birth is not birth of the future. We take birth now. We become a person now through what we like, what we don't like, etc., etc., etc. Samsara takes form. So when we go home, we take a look at our house, we become a person. This is my house. It belongs to me. Starts to form. Starts to be you, start to become you. I can't take your house. The house is yours. So you think it's mine. You create samsara. And then further, there is aging, there is death, etc., etc. So here are the thoughts that we always have. I grew up here, I don't mean whatever, right? So as we think these thoughts, we are creating a sense of self. Normally, if you do things and you are absorbed in it, you just do, for example, you chop onions, chop onions. You read a book. After a while, you forget yourself, isn't it? So the self is not created at those times. There are times when we are free. These blue boxes are times that we are free of self. Because we don't think, I like this, I don't like it. This is mine, this is not mine. There's no sense of self. Yeah? If we just do paint the wall, we just paint the wall, our mind is 100% painting the wall, then we don't think, I am painting the wall so well. I'm a good painter. After I finish painting this wall, somebody should say, you are a good painter. So those are ideas of the I. As Venerable Thanissaro talked about it, this is the process that is happening. So this chart actually is the smoking gun. It is the evidence that we are always creating samsara in our mind. So back to Venerable Thanissaro. Let me read his words. We aren't just creating worlds, we are also creating ourselves. We beings are all processes of physical and mental phenomena. The Buddha taught that what we think of as our permanent self, our ego, our self-consciousness and personality is not fundamentally real. So we have these teachings of anatta. Have you heard, of the Buddha's teaching? Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Then some people scratch their head. What is the Buddha talking about when he mentions anatta? This is it. When we are not forming self, we are experiencing anatta, although it is a very surface level. You don't think about yourself. You become, in fact, selfless. When you are thinking about other things, when you are absorbed in doing something, you become selfless. There is no ego. But when you start to bring yourself to the party, then you have created self. Do I make sense to you? Yeah, because if you think that I am sitting here, then there is self. If you just sit here and be mindful that you are sitting here, the self, the idea, the thought of the self doesn't come up. And we are perfectly fine with that. So when we get angry, when we become unhappy, dissatisfied with certain things that is happening in the world, what are we relating it to? Yeah, I don't like the trees on my road. Yeah, we are relating those trees to myself, to I. Yeah, and so we get all the things that are happening, the unhappiness, the craving, the dissatisfaction, that appears with it. So Bhante further says, so he says it's not real until we think it's real. When the thought appears, this is me, this is I, then the self becomes real. Before that, it's just normal things, nature happening by itself. Then he goes on to say, but it's continually regenerated based on prior conditions and choices. From moment to moment, our bodily sensations, conceptions, conceptualizations, ideas and beliefs work to create the illusion of a permanent, distinctive me. So even when I ask you the question, do you agree with me? You think, am I agreeing with him? Sense of self. Do you agree with me? Sense of self. I agree with him, or I don't agree with him. Self is coming up. So sorry that I bring up this self in you, but it is an experiment to make you understand it. You are reinforcing the self. And some people, the sense of self is very, very strong. They are full of themselves. I am so good, I am so great, I am so famous. Everybody must respect me. That sense of self goes on not just appear, it appears deeply. It's got lots of roots, and those roots go deep into their mind. So when they lose things, they become not just sad, they become very, very sad, because the roots are so deep. Yeah, the sense of I. Okay, then, yeah, I just thought I would do this. This is us creating ourselves. I, me, mine. I, me, mine. Right? And, okay, I wanted to do a quick experiment, but we might not have time. If you have a white wall, it works very well. What I'm trying to say is that we see things that are not real. You see this apple is red, right? The apple is not red. Do you know what is the true color of the apple? Okay, let's do this. You stare at the apple. Stare at it. And then after that, look at the white wall or the yellow wall. The true color of the apple will appear. Now just stare at it for some time. Right? Now move to the wall. Just look at the plain wall. Any plain wall. What color you see? What color do you see? The real color of the apple will appear on the wall. And usually it is green. It is green. If you look at the wall, after staring at this red apple, you will see a green apple appear there. So what I'm trying to say is, not all the time do we see reality. So why is the apple red? The apple is red because it reflects red into our eyes. Why is it green? Because we can see it. It is green because it keeps the green to itself. I want the green. This green is mine. So the apple is green. It doesn't want the red. It reflects out the red, and the red comes to our eyes. What the apple doesn't want, we see it, basically. So it doesn't want red. So we see red. Actually, it is green because it keeps the green color. So in basic terms, what I'm trying to say is, as Bhante explains, living in samsara is a process, and it's going on all the time. So when we try to understand samsara, let us try to look at it in this way. It's a different way, but it's very relevant. Yeah, it makes sense. Samsara, samsara, samsara. Those beings, those humans who get rid of this sense of self, they don't think of self anymore. Those beings are called arahants. They have no sense of self. What is. So, what happens to them? They are no longer in samsara. Because they have no sense of self. There's nothing to hold them. There's nothing for them to grasp. So, when they eat, they eat. When they sleep, they sleep. When they die, they just die. Simple as that. That is the nature of the human being that has gotten rid of samsara. So, liberating from samsara, what do we do? Yeah, so we look at the Four Noble Truths. We are creating our samsara. How are we creating samsara? Is through our craving. That we can stop creating samsara, the Buddha tells us, we, human beings, all beings, with a mind, can stop creating samsara. And how do you stop it? I go back to my original title. We stop it by following the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is the way for us to get rid of this samsara. We keep being born again and again in this place. So samsara and nirvana or nibbana, samsara is contrasted with nibbana. It is actually the opposite. Nibbana is not a place, but a state that is neither being nor non-being. When we cease to create samsara, nibbana naturally appears. So this is what happens with the Arahants. They don't think of I anymore, me or mine anymore. They are actually in Nibbana. So this is the meaning of Nibbana. So as I mentioned, the greater the I, the sense of self, the stronger the suffering. And I have also come to understand this truth, that human ego, the sense of I, is threatened by Nibbana. So when we explain Nibbana, means let go of the I, let go of this me and mine. People do not like it. Well, sorry, not people. Most of the people in this world, they don't like it. They will say, I what? I am I. How can you tell me got no I? They don't like to be told this truth. So the Buddha said, we are not really beings. We are being. In the English language, we are not being as a noun. We are being as a verb. We are verbs. Thinking, we are nouns. And that is the sad thing. Because we are verbs, thinking we are noun, we suffer. The suffering, I am I. But, as I hope I have explained, we are in the process. We never stop thinking, me, I. And so, we suffer. And when somebody comes along and say, you let go of your I, you attain Nibbana, we sometimes suffer even more. You want me to let go of the I? Cannot. I am here. I am so great, I cannot let go myself. And I don't want to listen. So many people, when they hear the Dhamma, when the good teachers explain this, they run away. This is not nice. I don't like to hear. I go and listen to some other teachings, strengthen my I. Now, I go and find some other people, they will teach me that my I is forever. Yeah, eternal. I like that one. I go and listen. You tell me my I is not here, not real, that I am a verb, not a noun. Very hard to listen. Not easy to follow. But you are very good. You are still here. You haven't run away. Thank you for that. Right. So I just go on. The Noble Eightfold Path, I have explained this. I just, maybe in the time that we have left, let me touch on the first two, and then perhaps I continue this another time. I know that what I have shared with you is pretty heavy going. It's not easy to grasp it. Yeah, so let us spend some time maybe having some discussion, some Q&A. But I like to share because it has a lot of connection with what we have been looking at this morning. The Noble Eightfold Path, as you know, are made up of these 8 factors. Yeah, and I will not explain them. I will just go straight, these are the trainings. I will just go straight into right view. We are drawn to the Dhamma because of right view. We have some kind of right view. And right view keeps us close to the Buddha's teachings. And as we are close to the Buddha's teachings, right view becomes even stronger. It becomes more right. We see things more clearly. But if we don't have the right view, some people say, hey, follow me to the temple. Follow me to Bandar Utama Buddhist society. They are not interested. They prefer to spend their Sunday morning eating dim sum. More attractive to them. Then sit on the floor, but now got aircon, it's very nice. When I started learning Dhamma, no aircon, just fan, It's not attractive to them. Because why? They have no right view. They have no connection to things that are good and wholesome. They just want to, maybe I've seen people, they drop their kids, in the Sunday Dhamma school, then they go to market. Of course, we need to go to market. Yeah. But not everybody is interested to listen to the Buddha's teachings. So because of right view, we stay. But we are not totally having right view. Our view is not 100% right. So we see some things clearly, and some things we not clearly we see it. So our life is like that. Some things are clear, some things are not clear. But if we don't stay to develop right view, if we don't put the effort to developing right view, if we don't clear our minds so that wisdom can appear, it becomes even more blur. More and more blur until we become, sometimes, we hold extreme view, and then our world looks like this, where right view cannot find a way in to the person's mind. You try to reason with them, no more reasoning, and it becomes totally like you can't even see it. No light can go in. There's no chance to bring the person to right view. Yeah, Samma Ditti. This word Samma is very important. Samma Ditti means we see things in the way that will get rid of samsara. That will take us out from the process. That will make us understand what, not whom, what we actually are. Right? Yes. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your kind attention, in following what I have to say. There are, of course, Noble Eightfold Path. There are 8 of them. So hopefully we can find another opportunity to discuss Dhamma again. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Yes. Yeah, can. Up to you. Anyone wants to say something?
Testing. We have time for just one question, maybe a quick one if anybody wants to ask any questions. All right, I'll just pass the mic to you.
Brother, my question, how do we gradually let go of the self, and what are some of the things that we can actually do to gradually let go of that?
As we go further along the Noble Eightfold Path, the last 3 factors are the practical. The first 5, the first 2 are actually they draw the person like us to the Dhamma. Yeah? We find Dhamma interesting because of the right view and the right thought. Then after that, what happens after that? The next 3 are the preparation. They make us more wholesome and more pure so that we can practice the next 3. The next 3 are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So these 3 are very, very important to let us experience what it is like to be free of the I. The first one, let me go to the bottom one first, which is Samma Samadhi. It is right concentration. Have you ever read a book that is so interesting? When your family calls you for dinner, you don't hear them. Have you had this experience before? Anyone? Yeah. Or you are doing something, like you are fixing something, and this work is so interesting that you forget the time. Has that happened to you before? Yeah. This is what concentration is all about. Your mind goes to the object and you are lost in that work. So concentration attaches you. It ties you to what you are looking, what you are hearing, and all those things. Yeah, it ties you to what you are doing so that your mind cannot run away. So, as the first practice, not to have so much I, concentration is very, very good. You can concentrate on your breath. You can concentrate on the quality of your heart. That is called metta. Yeah, you concentrate until the I cannot come in. So Ajahn Brahm tells a very interesting story. I heard this story of his disciple. So in Australia, so this disciple, I think it was a holiday, so he decided to practice the concentration meditation. So he went into his room, I think it was morning. He started his concentration, and when he came to lunchtime, his wife knocked on the door, no answer. So wife opened the door, there he was sitting, meditating. Yeah, the wife poked him, he didn't answer. So she panicked, called for ambulance. Yeah. Ambulance came, took him to the hospital. He still didn't respond. Then she remembered, oh, this must be involved. Ajahn Brahm must be involved. So he called Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm went to the hospital, took a look at him. Don't worry. After a while, he will come out of it. So you know what happened to this man? His concentration was so good that all the senses were cut off. You call him, he couldn't hear. You poke him, he didn't feel. Yeah, of course he couldn't see anything because his eyes were closed. So it can happen. This state is what we call jhana. It is absorption. And I don't know whether you are practicing that. The object and the mind become one. The mind is the object, and the object is the mind. There's nothing else. Nothing else can be experienced except the mind and the object. So that's called jhana. The next one is sati. Sati means using the mind, we look at the reality of existence. So as we practice sati, there is another quality that makes it clear to us. If there is sati, there must be this other quality called sampajana. So it is sati sampajana. It's not just, in the West, they are so interested in mindfulness. So everybody wants to learn mindfulness. Yeah, it has become an industry. Last year, before COVID started, the industry in the US alone was worth $1.2 billion US. They wanted to learn hardware and software. They also downloaded apps into their phone to teach them how to be mindful. That is only sati. There is no sampajana. Sampajana means see closely. So as we see closely, we begin, in the process that I have explained to you, we start seeing the consciousness, the nama rupa, the attachment and all that. It stops functioning like normal. Wouldn't it be great? Let me let's see whether I can go back now. Yeah, go back to that chart. Right. Consciousness will happen. Body and mind will happen. 6 sense bases are happening. They are there. Contact will happen because it's nature. feeling will happen. There is a weakness in this link. You know the chain? You imagine a chain link. There is a weakness in this link. And the weakness is, after you have feeling, control it before it becomes craving. That is the weak link. If you watch Sati and Sampajana, the mind, feeling pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, watch. Craving cannot appear. Because you don't know, you allow it to happen, we allow it to happen. Afterwards, when we have lunch, we eat and we, ho chia. Craving. But if we have concentration, we have mindfulness, we watch. After a while, the craving becomes weak and weaker. And then we begin to understand the sense of self. So, as you watch craving, the link becomes disjointed. And once it becomes disjointed, the mind sees by itself. Our mind is actually very bright and very clear. The trouble is, when we crave, the mind becomes very blurred. But once we practice mindfulness and concentration, the mind becomes very bright. Then we can see. So, if there is no craving, what happens? There is no clinging. When there is no clinging, due to Sati and Sampajana, there is no becoming. When there is no becoming, there is no birth. When there is no birth, there is only Nibbana. So the Buddha doesn't just give us the problem. Here is the problem. The problem is we are suffering, there is samsara, etc. The Buddha tells us, the Buddha gives us the solution as well. So it's up to us whether we want to practice it or not. So those who are wise, they practice it and they are free. So some of us hear about it and we think, maybe I will practice it. When I find time, I will practice it. Yeah. So hopefully we will find time, or we are not here, not there. Yeah, we know, but we don't do. So when we don't do, we just hang around, hoping for the best, until next birth. But if we go to the next birth, how do you know you will come across this person again? How sure are you will encounter the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha again? You look at the people out there, how many of them have never heard of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha? How many? And even if you tell them, come and listen to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, they tell you, no, Sunday morning is for other things. Not interested. So, we are lucky. We are so lucky. We are so fortunate. The jackpot fell onto our lap. Durian? Durian fell onto... Durian what? Durian fall. Durian runtuh. But we don't pick up the durian. Durian fell. Leave the durian alone. And we walk away. So this is what we need to do. Yeah, and what we try to do as lay speakers is, we are not monks. So we are like you. So hopefully we can speak the same language, and it's lucky. We are not enlightened beings, but we are trying to be. We try our best to put in the time and the effort, to stop this samsara appearing in our minds. So you can do it if you want to. But at the same time, to tell you the truth, when we come across the Dhamma, When we mix with same type of people who are good, who are wholesome, who are practicing, who observe precepts, then the I also go down. If you go and mix with those people all the time talking about money, and I mixed with them before, everything is money, how to make money here, how to make money there, all they are concerned about is wealth. They have no time for the Dhamma. So the choice is ours. We are intelligent, we can think. But where we want to go is entirely up to us, using our intellect.